Hello, welcome to our webinar today on SAP authorizations, and in particular on what is called access violations, access violation management, and segregation of duties, how to enforce them, how to monitor potential violations of these SOD roles in your SAP system. My name is Jens Kettler. I'm the head of product for the REMQ GRC tool here at VOQUZ Labs. And we have a guest today again. Here with me is Nicolas from our team. Hey, Nicolas.
Hi, Jens.
Buenos
Yes.
dias.
Buenas tardes. Yes. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm Nicolas Hernandez. I'm the SAP technical lead for the REMQ tool in VOQUZ Labs, and I've been working in this product for almost 10 years. So yeah, I hope to help you today in this webinar.
Yeah, you certainly will. Our plan is today to do it a little bit technical as well. So we also are going to do a demo in the SAP system after some short introductions. So I'll discuss what is access violation management and how can you kind of fix it, so to say. And then Nicolas will demonstrate a few applications how this can actually be done in the SAP system. So I think term access violation management is, I think, kind of new. At least it's newer than the SAP authorization topic, but actually the problem always existed. You have an authorization concept where you try to restrict authorizations. That means as little authorizations as you need for the job. And in particular, you try to avoid that some people have or some users have combinations of authorizations that are considered critical. Could also be single actions that are considered critical and where you want to have additional monitoring. But most of the time, people are discussing, I believe, combinations. A typical example is a user can create a vendor and can enter the invoice, maybe even trigger the payment run, something like that. That's critical. It's something that can lead to unwarranted money transfers to bogus, malicious bank accounts. And usually organizations will try to separate these activities, maintaining the master data and entering the invoice, for instance. And sometimes that's not possible. It's kind of what is depicted here in the ChatGPT picture, how that tries to show what's happening. You know, one person doing two things that should be separated, actually. So there is no four eyes principle in place in that kind. And you need something that is acting as a compensating control in those cases where the SAP authorization concept kind of fails or is too weak, let's say. Again, can be single actions, like somebody changes something that you consider as critical, but maybe in the SAP system there is no authorization or no workflow where you can kind of separate this activity, like request and approve something, or could be even like due to deficiencies in the SAP authorization concept, that one person can do these two things because he has just too many authorizations. Happens actually quite often. It's something we always try to kind of give a little bit of a map here, the SAP security solutions map, where we are, and we are here in the roles and authorization space, obviously, and it's really applicable in particular in areas such as fraud management. In particular, internal fraud. Internal fraud cases are the most prevalent ones. More than half of all fraud cases involve insiders, and very often a lack of segregation of duties kind of facilitated or enabled committing fraud. So this is an important internal control that we are speaking about. The REMQ tool is covering that. We're going to look into details here a little bit later, but just as a reminder, the REMQ tool is kind of a platform for internal controls automation. So we cover internal controls on a variety of business processes in the SAP system, from the revenue side through accounting to the expense side in procurement, but also in HR and payroll. And we are monitoring the flow of money, materials, and inventory through the organization. Another aspect of that is business partner screening, including sanctions list screening. And today, on the lower right corner, access violation management. Now, how can it actually happen that somebody has authorizations that exceed what ideally he should have? Like, for instance, can create or change a vendor and can enter an invoice for the same vendor. In many cases, we see that customers are kind of overwhelmed by maybe complexity of authorization concept, changing requirements in the business, people changing roles, and so it happens that the SAP authorization concept is just not properly maintained. Maybe the business requires additional authorizations on top of what can be considered as secure, because somebody's jumping in, helping out with another job that he's usually not doing, but then he needs additional authorizations to do something, or it's technically inherent. That's in particular true for many of these critical single actions that you can do. Somebody can change a price, somebody can change a bank detail, somebody can change something else that's critical. And that's not just in the business processes, it's also about creating a user and assigning the access roles for instance, in the SAP basis team. So, or could even be, I don't know, unwarranted, right? Somehow you trick somebody else into giving you authorizations, or you manage to do it yourself. So the risks there is excessive access rights that can lead to financial losses. And the approach is kind of monitoring is easier than preventing all these access risks. In many cases, preventing these access risks would mean hiring many more people and kind of trying to distribute the business process onto more different users, which is often not possible just because you don't have this headcount, so to say. So monitoring and then potentially even monitoring plus blocking the access once it is detected, or blocking a document or blocking a business partner is easier to implement, has a lower cost, and is just as effective as restricting all the authorizations there and hiring more staff. Of course, monitoring is something that can only happen when something occurs. So that means we are looking at things that did happen, that somebody did do. We're not looking at something like doing like authorization analysis and looking at authorization objects and roles where we could detect what somebody can do. That's analyzing SAP authorizations, but we are monitoring user activity in the SAP system. And there's a very interesting table and definition of all these things coming actually from the sources here at the bottom, the KPMG IT advisory, in particular in the Netherlands. They have published a document called Types of Segregation of Duties, Types of SOD. The link is also here. I think if you just Google it, you'll also find it. It has this table which says, okay, you can monitor and detect segregation of duty violations on level 1, which is kind of the easiest level. Yeah, it is a can-do analysis. So that means you look at the authorizations the user has, and then you derive insights into what he can do. Yes, he can create a user. Yes, he can assign roles. Yes, he can create a vendor and maybe create an invoice. Does the user ever do that? Maybe not. It's just a can-do. It's a possibility. So there is a dormant risk. And maybe that's something that you're willing to take, because in some cases it gives you flexibility to act faster and run the business smoother. And then they refine the level of authorizations. They go to level 2, 3, and 4, and maybe we can check back the table here so that viewers can see that. So level 2 is then based on the actually executed transaction codes. So somebody can or did actually enter a transaction code that allows him to create a user, and he also entered a transaction code that allows him to enter an invoice. And maybe level 3, then also he created a user. He created a vendor and he created an invoice. But is it an invoice for the same vendor? That you find out if you do the analysis on the document level 4 monitoring. So we will discuss this right now, and that's what we are also doing in REMQ. So we will only report cases as violation if a user enters an invoice for a vendor that he previously entered or changed. If you create or enter or change a vendor A and enter an invoice for vendor B, there is no business risk. Actually, there was a 4 eyes principle, and the level 1 to 3 monitoring would report all these cases as risk, but actually there's no risk if it's 2 different vendors. So this separation is I think, critical. And the technical problems, how to do that, are in where the SAP system records who is entering information or who is changing information. Typically, when a so-called SAP business object, such as a user, an authorization role, a material, a vendor, a financial document, is created, then the user who created that, the information is in that table where the information about the business object is saved. If somebody changes such a business object, then there's a related so-called change document in SAP where the changes are recorded. So you have 2 different places where you need to look, whether somebody entered or created something, or whether someone changed something. And you need to consider all the combinations. It can be create, that means table. It can be change, that's change doc, or it can be enter, change, or change, enter. So it's 4 different combinations of these types of analysis that you have to perform on a document level to actually find whether this level 4 did do violation occurred or not. So the information is in tables or in change documents, which is of course also just a table. And the data has then to be properly combined, and in particular, there has to be some sort of link. You don't want to see all the changes. You want only to see changes that happen in one business process, so to say. Create a user and create an invoice for the create a vendor and create an invoice for the same vendor. So we have put this into the tool, and we have a number of these SOD checks that work out of the box in the tool. And we also have a no-code controls builder, so to say. We have a tool in our tool that allows you to create these controls yourself for those cases where we do not cover that in our shipped library. That is comprehensive, but of course never complete. So having said that, Nicolas, maybe you can share some insights. How do our standard controls look like, and how a user can actually quite easily create a new SOD check in our system?
Yes, we are here on the REMQ alert monitor. Here we have different built-in checks where we already deploy with the tool. And in particular, I would like to show one that is related to the vendors and invoices. It's one that you mentioned here, Jens, also in the presentation. So in particular, we have this P2P SOD MD invoice check, which checks if a same user, let's say, it's creating or changing a vendor and then posting an invoice to that vendor. So we are, let's say, on the level 4 on this segregation of duties check. And when we detect something that is not right, let's say, we have an alert with all these details on the right side. For example, in this case, we see that the vendor account number is here, the name of it, the user that did these 2 actions, which is creation, like we see here, of the vendor, and then the posting of this accounting document number. So we can also have more details of the user. In this case, it says that the user does not exist anymore. So it means that it could be like a fraudulent activity because some user was created, it created a vendor account, then the accounting document number, and then they deleted the user. So it gives us more information about this activity. We can also go to this accounting document number by double clicking on it. So if we go here, we can see the details of the invoice, the 2 items, the amount, also the date when it was posted. So we have very good, let's say, relationship between this SAP standard and our custom tool. We can do the same for the vendor account number here that we see in blue color. So we go and see the address for this vendor, more information about it. And also once we have this alert, we can perform different actions. For starting, we can add some comments. For example, let's say review this data. For example, we can add some like logging of what we are doing on this alert, and we can also add attachment, for example. Lastly, we can send an email to someone that we are interested in sending this information. We can, for example, it could be the user that created the alert, could be someone else, some auditor from the company that needs to review this one, and we can do it by here by pressing this button. And lastly, we can either choose to approve or reject this transaction. Rejection would mean that the activity that we detected on this alert is not, let's say, is not valid. It's something that was fraudulent or risky for the company. So we can choose some reason here. Also add some comment is not valid, for example. We can reject it, and we can see that the status here has changed. Also, we will have all the log and all the comments in this section of the alert. So this is a typical example of one of the alerts that we can have in our tool. But this is, as we said, one built-in check. We can also go to the admin transaction in here. And we have this transaction, which is called SOD configuration, which allow us to create some custom links between business objects that they are not already on the tool. So this means that we, for example, if we as a user or company that we use the REMQ tool, we have some requirements for some typical objects that the tool does not cover. We can easily add them here. For example, I will take this example of rule ID, which is 103. And the object that we are checking is CRED, which is the vendor object. So every change or creation on vendors will be flagged and detected and saved in the change documents tables in SAP. So we can link it with the object B. In this case, is the ENC which is the purchase order master object. So we say that if the same user created a vendor and then posted a purchase order for that vendor, we will detect it and create an alert for it. We have a few more data here, like the link table between the objects and also the days back that we would like to search. In this case, is 10,000. Maybe it's too much, but for testing, it's okay. So it's also an option to go to this match code here, and we can see all the standard objects which are available, all the standard and custom objects which are available to be searched and flagged for change documents. So we can easily select one of these, and then we will be checking this with the other object that we have here. So also there's another transaction that maybe is important, which is called SCDO, which has all the standard list of change document objects in SAP. So it's a good way to understand what are the current objects that we have in the system and the ones that we can use for this tool.
But actually, I think the drop-down list that you showed before, and which also has searchable information on the change documents, pretty much that's what you need, right? You use the drop-down list, you can search and you can find a change document, you select it, you do this twice for a pair of combination, and then you're good to go, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes. It's just the other one is a standard and maybe has everything in there, but of course the same information is saved here. Yeah. So now we can go to the alerts transaction. And in this case, once we are selecting all the alerts for the different checks, we will see that there is a particular area which is called excess violation management, which will contain all the custom alerts that we or custom controls that we defined in the other transaction. So, for example, in this case, we have the 103, the ones that rule that we defined, and we have like 8 alerts in this case. So this is saying that the user here, D020740, has created a purchasing document and also created, first created a vendor and then a purchasing document for that vendor. And it's also possible to add the links to the standard SAP transaction. So if we go here to the purchasing document, we can easily go to the ME23N transaction and see all the details of the PO. Same will happen with the vendor. We can see the details, address, and all the information that is needed. And of course, the same actions like approve or check would be available for this kind of custom controls.
Right, and maybe something to add is you cannot just monitor and then use approve or reject to document your finding, but the tool can even automatically, for instance, block the purchase order or set a payment block to the vendor or things like that. So we have actions that the tool can trigger. And only when the transaction is approved here in the tool, the block would be released again and the process can continue. Yeah, so it can really act like a firewall, blocking documents or business partners or doing other stuff, send out notifications.
Yeah, exactly. It's a way to integrate SAP functions with our custom tool. So yeah, that's very, very good point. Thank you, Jens. I was already forgetting about that. And yeah, one more thing maybe which is also important is that we can not only, let's say, select the combination between two objects, but also we have the single action tool. This tool is ideally made for flagging or logging changes to a particular object. I mean, just one, not add relation with another one. But this is a good example. For example, this is the cost center log. So we can check if a user has set the value of this cost center by locking or unlocking this one. So we can easily put the table name that we are going to check and the field names. In this case, we have two field names that are the log fields for this cost center. So we can add as many as we want here, but for this example, we have only two. Whenever a user changes the value from this field to empty to X or vice versa, we will create an alert. So if we go back here to the alert transaction, we will also see one type of these alerts that are called single action. And the idea is to monitor this risky transaction. In this case, is this one, lock and lock cost center. And what information do we have as well is that the field, what was the, let's say, the previous value and the new value that was set by the user. This came user R18 sets this lock field from empty to X, and the change indicator is an update. So yeah, this means that the value was changed, not created.
Yeah, I think what's important also, I mean, just going one step back, change documents record all the changes to the change to the business object, and that might be too much. For instance, here in this case of the cost center, if somebody changes the description of the cost center, maybe that's not critical and you don't want to see this. So we will not create alerts for all the changes, but you can specify which field in the technical table needs to be changed, and you can even filter and you can say, I only want to see unlocking, not locking. So that's also possible. So it can be a very fine granular monitoring of user activity, compensating for excessive access risks and authorizations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's it from my side, from the demo. So yeah, thank you. I give you the last word for the wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nicolas. I think so. What we saw is we have this very fine, granular, and detailed monitoring of user activity, both one single action or to prevent segregation of duty violations, also these combinations that can be set up in an easy, no coding way. So a business user can do that typically if you don't need to involve the SAP team. And it can be set up also like it's just one line. If you know the objects, then it's set up within 5 minutes. One rule. And we ship a number of rules as well. And besides access violation management rules, we also ship many rules that help you to follow your money through the SAP system and have many internal controls built there. If you want to test it yourself, if you think that you have maybe excessive authorizations for some users and there might be access violations, you can do a trial with the software. We can define a scope together. Typically, installing the software and setting it up takes less than a day, and you will receive results basically within one business day after installing the software. So welcome to reach out to us and maybe schedule another demo or a talk to kick this off. We'd be happy to work with you on this. And if you have any other questions regarding access violation management or our tool, yeah, please reach out and we are happy to answer.
Thanks for staying, you guys. Welcome everybody to the VOQUZ Labs webinar. My name is Stefan. I'm running the background and helping out here. And before we jump to the questions that we see coming in on various channels, I'd like to go through a survey with you guys just to see where we all stand with the segregation of duties topic. It's 4 questions. Taking part is by mouse click and it's anonymous, so don't worry about compliance. We don't see who it was, we only see what you said. So let's jump in there. The first question should be coming to your screens just now, and it is, do you have visibility into residual access risk in your organization? Example, is there an SOD matrix and the list of violation of SOD rules set up anywhere? I'm going to leave this open for another 5 seconds. Then I'm going to show you guys the results, and maybe Jens or Nicholas, you have a thought or comment on it. So do you have visibility into residual access risks in your organization? Yes or no? Closing in 2 seconds and showing you this, Jens. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, an SOD matrix is kind of a standard thing. You can even download it at various places in the internet or something. SAP GRC Access Control does have a standard SOD matrix that's also available even to users or to companies that don't have SAP GRC Access Control in use. But yeah, visibility would mean you need to do this type of analysis, right? Which user has authorizations? You need a tool for that.
Out of your experience, does it surprise you, the ratio 20% to 80? Or is that a common thing when you come across talking to customers?
I'm not sure actually if that's typical, but it's maybe that the person clicking the answer does not have the visibility, but maybe somebody else in the company does.
That's what we're hoping. I see. I get it. Let's jump to the second one. You should see it on your screens now. Do you have a process in place to review and recertify access rights? So is there any way where you say, okay, let's have a look at the system to see if everything is still up to date and maybe readjust that? I'm going to leave this open for about 5 seconds from now for you guys to answer.
Yeah, I think the idea asking about review and recertifying access rights is that very often users accumulate access rights, but roles get never removed from their user profile.
Removed or adjusted. Let's have a look at it. What the guys say. Closing the question and showing you the results. And you see, okay, 64% say, yeah, I'm checking this. They are up to date, and 36% say, no. What can happen in the worst case if you don't do this and don't watch this?
Yeah, if you never remove access rights, but only accumulate them, then you're adding to creating this SOD violations in user access rights. So I think it's a critical process.
So basically producing your own alarms, if you want to put it that way.
Yep.
Okay, let's jump to the third one out of 4. Out of curiosity, and here we go. Do you audit user activities in areas where you know that there are segregation of duties violations? So this means, like, for example, every 12 months, manually review a sample of transaction, every 6 months, whatever your process would be. So do you do that? Yes or no?
Yeah, so this audit, I think the intention is more like it's a manual process, as you mentioned, every 12 months or something like that, that you look into that. In contrast to, I think the next question is, do you do monitoring, which is automated real time? So this would be kind of the first maturity level in doing this. And the next one would be to have automation and real time insights.
Yeah, let's check the results here before we jump to the last one, as you say. Just going to throw this on the screen and you should see it by now. So, okay, 60% do and 40 don't. And I'm gonna move over to the next question that you already mentioned. Let me just jump in there. Here we go. You should see it on your screen now. So do you monitor user activities for segregation of duty violations, like continuously in an automated process, just as Jens just said? I'm gonna leave this open for 5 seconds. Still see people clicking. Yeah, poll is still moving. Closing in 3 from now, so please make your click. Closing and showing the results. Okay, it's 58 here for the automation and 60 in the previous question.
It's great. I mean, and it roughly adds up to 100% if it's different users maybe answering. This type of monitoring definitely is something that's helpful for your security posture.
Excellent. So the 42% can still think about it and talk to you about it. Okay, thanks you guys for taking part in the survey, so we all know where we stand. I'm going to jump over to the questions. Let me just rearrange my screen. We've got 2 different sources, one per email. If you have any questions that pop up after we've done here, please use labs@VOQUZlabs.com as an email address. You're going to distribute this to Jens and to Nicholas. Actually, Jens is in charge of the process as such, and then you're going to decide if it's a technical question for a specialist, something for himself. You can have a look at our website. I know this sounds like lame, everybody. You can have a look at our website, but you can. So we have different types of informations there on the products and REMQ, where you can see what we actually do. I'm actually, by the way, I'm quite happy in this webinar that we showed the action, showed the process, showed the demo with Nicholas. Thanks to that. That's actually not really just only talking about theoretical stuff in the background, which was Jens's idea when we set up the webinar. So that was good. Yeah. So I'm talking rather than reading. Let me just. Okay, I'm going to jump to the first one. Does it work for custom transactions as well?
Yeah, it is not important how you change a business object, but all the changes get recorded in these change documents. If it's not a business object that you create or change, then we didn't show that, but we can also monitor based on information available in various tables. So it will work for custom reports, transactions, custom code that changes data as well. Yes.
Then just a comment to you guys. Hi Jens, hi Nicholas, good to be here. Why not read that out as well? I'm going to jump to the next. Yeah, jump to the next question as well. Does this software migrate to S4? You know, people are still thinking about it. 2027 is coming up, and they're probably, you know, have the question: is this still useful then?
Yeah, absolutely. So we cover both ECC 6.0, the old version, so to say, and S4HANA, of course.
Excellent. This is a longer one. Let me just read it out as it is. With your solution, we can detect can-do SOD, but how does it help us to review SAP roles? Meaning, would it include a a suggested solution to migrate the risk. I hope I read it out correctly.
Yeah, so there's other tools for that. It's a kind of complementary solutions. You have these authorization management tools, such as SAP GRC Access Control. And there's third-party vendors. If you check our website, we have a tool that does exactly the same. It's called SetQ. And then there is our tool, which is compensating for these deficiencies through actual activity monitoring. But we do not analyze existing access rights.
Yeah, as Jens has just mentioned it, I'm sharing the screen now. So when you're looking at this, you go to products, and then SetQ is the tool Jens was just talking about, manage your SAP authorizations and ensure compliance and control. You find your information there. You find REMQ here. You find the top level overview for people who like to listen more rather than read. So this is a top level explanation on what a REMQ does. And then you have the various brochures here, depending on if you're focused on fraud prevention and error prevention. There's a brochure there about it, compliance as well. And for now, there is a promotion. Please allow me to be a bit salesy now regarding the quick assessment to actually try out the tool and to see what it does and whether it works for you or not. Okay, done here. I'm going to stop the sharing. I lost track where I was. Here we go. Which are the SAP tools which come close to REMQ? Can you mention any of those? Is there a comparison between the two? Fair question, actually.
I would say what is kind of closest to what we do is SAP Business Integrity Screening. I think the difference between the two tools is that we have a lot of packaged content that can be used directly after installing the software. And also creating new controls is easy, as we just showed. Usually you can select things from a drop-down list, or the business user can create it without creating a data pipeline into a third-party tool and setting up new rules and so on. I think implementing business integrity screening and running it is much more costly. If you do that, sorry, you can do essentially everything. It's a platform, a powerful platform, but I think we have a much faster return on investment here with a easy-to-use tool like ours.
Nicholas, a spontaneous cross question there. When you arrange everything technically and set everything up and do the adjustments, are there special fields like people lack paying attention to, where you say, we need to look into this because this is sort of a source of error if it's not set up correctly?
You mean in the tool where we set up the REMQ tool? Yeah,
exactly.
we have for example, we send with some default configuration that we have collected with the several customers already. So we know that the controls will run essentially quite okay with this default configuration. And then we will need some time to adjust to the specific customer, but it's not too much. So that's why we think that the return of investment is quite immediate, and we can create results right away. It's quite easy to set up. Yes.
Excellent. So the tool, it runs, everything is cool, but if you want to sort of have a special adjustments to your processes and to your company's rule sets, let's call it that way, you can do that.
Of course.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Jumping over, let's have a look at the chat. So guys, feel free to type away if you think of something else. I'm going to look into the emails there, and there we go. And the question is, are all changes in the SAP system recorded in change documents? Okay. Yeah. Can I retrack what I did in the past, basically?
Yeah, not all changes in the system are recorded in that way. In particular, for instance, customizing settings and so on usually is not recorded in a change document. You can enable additional logging in SAP if you switch on table logging and then specify which tables need to be logged. So as a rule of thumb, business data, changes to business data is recorded in change document. Changes to customizing and other settings is typically done only if you can enable table logging. And we have a tool to access table logging information as well. Just didn't discuss it here.
Excellent. Other questions I have, especially two of them hold numbers. It might be too complicated to answer here openly. So if there is nothing else, I'd actually close the session.
One thing from Elisha is
Go
REMQ
ahead.
applicable for SAP GROW?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it?
So the tool is SAP calls it an add-on. It's also certified as an add-on, and you can also run it in a hosted environment, in particular in the private cloud, not in the public cloud. Because in the public cloud, you cannot make these kind of modifications and install plugins or add-ons. SAP does not allow that.
Excellent. I'll take those as the final words. Repeat myself. If you have any further questions, labs@VOQUZ Labs it is per email. You can also stalk Jens Kettler on LinkedIn as well. He's pretty active there. I think, Nicholas, you are too, if people want to connect. Yeah, of course. And thank you guys for attending. If you have any suggestions about topics in terms of internal controls, compliance in general, you might think a webinar might be useful, let us know. And other than that, see you the next time, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you.